Hello boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back and I hope you're all doing well. Today's video is going to be something a little bit different, and I don't normally do these off the cuff and all a bit ad-libbed because I like to have a script written out and to know exactly what I'm going to say, but you know what, today's going to be special. I think it was probably about a month ago now that I was contacted by the developers of this game, which is called Banners of Ruin. And this has never really happened before, or at least it's happened a few times, but it's never happened to the point where I've actually wanted to make a video on the game itself. So this is going to be the first officially sponsored video on the channel. And I'd also just like to apologise quickly if the microphone sounds off and if anything about this video sounds off, it's mostly because I've been travelling recently and I've managed to kind of jerry-rig together some kind of little recording place. It's basically a bunch of pillows just stacked up. So Banners of Ruin really stuck out to me because I'm a massive fan of a book series called Redwall, which was written quite a few years ago, and it's all about creatures taking on the roles in this sort of medieval fantasy world where there is like rats being all these ugly rodents who are like a ragtag group of soldiers and warriors, and it's always been quite cool to me anyway. So first and foremost, Banners of Ruin is a party-based deck-building game set in a world of medieval animals. Travel with up to 6 characters through the streets of Dawn's Point, facing perilous combat encounters at each turn. Take revenge on the Enders for what they did to the noble house Blackfoot, but expect to lose some brothers along the way. I had no idea what to expect from this game when I started playing, and to be quite honest, I'm not a big player of card games in general when it comes to digital card games. I've played a lot of Gwent, and I did play quite a lot of Hearthstone, but other than that, that's been where most of my experience came from. And I played a game called Armello, I think it's called, and it's basically very similar in the style and feeling to this game, but I think it's a bit more light-hearted, and it's more like a three-dimensional board game, which is also very cool. But I played this for about an hour or so, and I've literally just got finished going through it, and I just kept playing until I eventually died because the enemies became tougher and tougher and tougher. I made some notes on what I liked and disliked about the game, which I'll go through here for a moment, and I understand this video is very, very different from anything I normally do. Essentially, what I was asked to do for the game was just to record some gameplay and show it to you guys, and that could have been it, but I thought it would be better to make a video that's a bit more interesting than just, hey guys, here's some gameplay, and you know, just not just to leave it at that. I mean, obviously the main thing about the game that is most appealing is the presentation, and everything feels incredibly polished. There are a few cards and places where there's definitely some artwork missing, and they're working on it because obviously this is releasing to early access, but there is something very wonderful about the way they've animated the characters, the way they've drawn them, and I think it's predominantly 3 people working on this game, so keep that in mind while looking at this. It's pretty incredible. I'm not sure how many people they outsourced or how exactly the development worked entirely, and I've actually been thinking that in the future I'd really like to make a proper video on the development of this game, because I've always been curious about behind the scenes kind of stuff. The music is also so wonderful from the get-go, and the fact that they've made a lot of little creative decisions when it comes to making the game feel less static, because obviously when you're playing a card game, you know, even in real life, it's very hard to make it feel like you have a lot of interaction and to make it feel alive, because you have to do a lot of reading and a lot has to be left up to the imagination when it comes to a lot of the combat and what's going on with the story and those kind of things. And I think the fact that they kind of went for this handheld feel to the camera and to the menus was a very, very cool idea. And I love the fact that a lot of the paintings almost look three-dimensional, and I'm pretty sure they've used either I think it's called Dragonbone or Oh, there are a few programs which are made just for animating game characters, but they have features which allow for three-dimensional parallaxing, where it's a two-dimensional image, but you feel as if it's 3D just because they're moving normally inside of a grayscale layer, which, even though there's technically nothing 3D about it, you get the perception that it's 3D, which I think is very cool, and I wish I could explain it easier, but like I said, doing these things off the cuff is it's honestly a bit nerve-wracking, so hello. So as far as the presentation goes, and as far as the game feels, I really enjoyed actually playing it, which isn't something I didn't expect, because the main reason I did go into wanting to do a video on this was just because I really wanted to see how it looked, and I just love the whole atmosphere to it. And I love how you have to be very tactical about what you do and when you use cards and how you use them, in what order you use them, you know, in order to, like, for instance, you have a card that will inflict bleeding damage on an enemy, and then you have another card which, if you play in the right order, will deal a certain number of hits based on how many times that character is bleeding, so you can make the most out of how you play and what you do with what you have. There are a few things, though, that I would like to talk about in terms of what I think could be improved. I haven't had a lot of experience in game development, but I have worked on a few games. And from an audio perspective, I feel like the game needs a lot more work in that aspect, because for instance, when you're walking around the streets, or, you know, I say when you're walking, but when you're reading about you walking around the streets of this city, I feel like there could be a lot more sound effects for instance, when you're viewing a card, and let's say it's a tavern. Currently, most of the audio in the game is predominantly just the soundtrack all the time. So you don't really get the same feeling of being in that environment, because it doesn't become monotonous, but you feel like it kind of drags on a bit too long. And I think it would be really cool to break the soundtrack up with having, for example, like I was saying, if you're hovering over a card which is leading to a tavern, for example, you could have the sound effects of the animals and the people inside. If you're hovering over a card which, let's say, is like a card with a chest or something, you could hear like a little rattling, or like the bending or aching of wood, for example. You know, just little things that would really bring more life to the, not just to the environments, but also to the characters as well. The other thing I would actually really like to see is when it comes to trading cards and the presentation side of, like, going to a merchant or something, I feel it would be really cool if they had more backgrounds to certain areas. Like if you were to enter a card shop, for example, you could have the countertop, and in the background you'd have all the stacks of weapons and armor and everything else, and to create some more depth to the world that they've already got, because it's such a beautiful style, and the animations are so wonderful as they are. It'd be really nice to see them in full detail and to really get immersed into the world, but that's really a very personal thing, I think. To be honest, I was very surprised by how well done the game feels as it is, even though it's in early access. And I think it has a massive amount of potential to become something even bigger, and I would love to see, cutscenes for stories, and to see the world developed more, because at the moment I didn't feel like I really learned anything about the world unless I actually went to the website to read about it, and I'm not sure if that's just me, if I skimmed over something. I think it would be really cool to have something a bit more like an introduction cutscene or something, where it explains what's happened to the world and where you are and what you're doing, just in very, very general terms. You know, nothing has to be too complicated, just to say that you are part of this house, that you are now fighting these guys because they stole something from you or whatever. But as long as there was just like a tiny bit of context, it would have made a lot more sense to me, at least in terms of what I was doing there and why I was killing everyone. But thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's something a little bit more different and a little bit more chill, and it was mainly because I just really wanted to play this game, so I hope you enjoyed it. Next week I'll be uploading the next Witcher School video. I won't tell you which one it is because surprise, surprise. But it's been a lot of fun making the Witcher videos, and when I actually get back to the apartment and get back to my PC, I'll be able to actually upload and create the videos properly. So next week I'll be getting back into that, and you'll have yet another Witcher School done and dusted. So until the next one everyone, you go and have a very, very wonderful day. Fish and chips. I said that because I'm hungry.